There we go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'll just give it one more minute for the rest of the attendees to jump on and we will get started. Okay, let's get started. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We're very excited to be discussing this topic with you. My name is Deanne Palmer. I'm an account executive at ASI Solutions, looking after local government accounts and accounts that help in building local community. Today, I'm joined by Steve Thompson from Inner West Council, who's their IT Business Solutions Manager, and my colleague, Hein Talliard, who heads up our data and AI team here in Sydney. We'll be discussing the Copilot agent project that we worked on collaboratively in 2025 to help Inner West in deploying agents and further delivering their AI strategy. So I'm sure a lot of you would have seen in our invite, everyone that's joined our webinar today goes in the draw to win one of 3 prizes. So the major prize is one AI Accelerator engagement, which is a high value engagement to help fast track your council's AI strategy and implementation. And there's also 2 9-day AI consulting packages available to win as well. So we'll probably reach out to the winners of those prizes tomorrow. Let me just make sure that everyone is added in. Yes, perfect. Okay, so we'll jump right into the session now, but please feel free to add in any questions into the Q&A section and we'll get to those at the end. But I'm going to go over to you first, Steve. For those joining us who may not know Inner West Council or your role, can you give us a quick snapshot of what was happening internally when you first started looking at agents rather than M365 Copilot?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Deanne, and thank you for the opportunity to talk today. Steve Thompson, I'm the IT Business Solutions Manager at Inner West Council. My role at Council is I lead the AI practice at Council, amongst other things, around enterprise architecture and our corporate applications. For those that don't know, Inner West Council is an amalgamated council. We were proclaimed as a council. We joined from Leichhardt, Ashfield and Marrickville back in 2016. So, bit of context. Over the last couple of years, we've been coming off several years of major transformation, whether it's around ERP, modernisation, consolidation. We've gone through cloud and cyber uplifts. And only recently were we commencing some more major transformation work around data analytics platforms, using Microsoft Fabric and starting to work on other major initiatives around data governance and security. The reason for Copilot agents was AI was starting to get a bit of traction at Council. We get a lot of requests from staff saying, hey, can we start embedding AI platforms or using AI platforms just to help me with day-to-day activities, whether it was community engagement or even just general policy creation. So we then turned around and said, well, we've got to make a start, but we're not quite ready with some of the data governance controls in place. So we thought, let's jump on Copilot and we do it in a bit of an approach where we could trust it and be secure. So instead of going full M365, where we didn't have all the controls in place, we took the agent approach, where we could build some simple agents, ground that knowledge in some SharePoint repositories that are trusted and governed. And that allowed us to start our Copilot journey safely and ethically. That's pretty much the start for us.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting journey. I think we've all learned a lot along the way, haven't we? But we can go into that a little bit more. So Hein, I'll pass it over to you. Can you walk us through the agents that you started with at the beginning of the project and how that evolved over the span of the project?
Yeah, so as with most organizations, we started with a typical RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, right? Which is I'm reading from a set of policies. Now, a big lesson that we brought into the Inner West project from previous work was that, as Steve suggested there, like you need a dedicated space right now. It is very important for us to have those sort of dedicated SharePoint sites. So that help the sort of retrieval agents do their job properly. And that was based on sort of policies and OMSs and procedures and those kind of things. So really a very practical guide. And we did a little bit of work in procurement as well from that perspective. Once we got the basics down, we went and we thought we'd be a little bit fancy and try and actually produce something which was the policy writer. And the intent behind that agent was to say, we have these OMSs, and I'm sure Steve can at length explain to everybody what an OMS exactly is, but it's effectively like a procedural guide that follows a very specific format. And there was, during the project, when we looked at use cases, we thought, all right, well, what's actually taking a lot of time that is just, repeated the same thing over and over and over again. So the idea behind the OMS agent is that the user gets asked a few basic questions, so like what's the intent, who's the audience, so on and so forth. And then the sort of language model takes up and sort of gets to that 75-80% of the policy document or the procedural document being written up for you. So that was a big time saver. The final one we wanted to do, but we at the end of the day ended up not to, was a full virtual business analyst, which was a combination of go through policy, go through previous documents, interrogate the ERP. So what we ended up deciding is, given where we were as an organization, I was in the West Coast as an organization, and what we were trying to actually achieve with the project, we actually ended up saying no to executing on that agent. But that would have been, something quite impressive and quite sort of extreme from a development perspective. So that's sort of where our head was at with where we wanted to do the first couple.
Yeah, thanks, Hein. And what were some of the learnings from the initial development phase that you've taken into future projects since?
Look, as we've already said now, like the most important thing was to get the data in a space where it's safe, right? And because one of the things that we picked up quite early on, and this was both from a BA perspective and from a developer perspective, at that time we were still somewhat cautious on when is it hallucinating, right? Because as we were busy refining the system prompts and those kind of things, we wanted to make sure, because the next thing was, as we were testing these agents, and it was a very important lesson for us to bring in, was it's all good and well testing what should happen, but you should also test what shouldn't happen, right? So we asked a few silly questions, right? Like you can go, like, when you're a policy agent asking who's the president of America, like it should not only not give you the answer, it should say, listen, I'm not supposed to answer this, right? So knowing your content and knowing what this agent should have access to is particularly important, from just understanding what those outcomes are going to look like. I think from a technical perspective, and this is something that we've recently been advocating very, very hard across most organizations that we deal with, is getting more mature with your DevOps process, right? Now, most people hear that and it becomes a very scary thing. It's like, oh, all kinds of weird developer stuff. Basically, what we're emphasizing there is there needs to be a space for us to develop and a space for us to test, right? Once we actually got that in, the ability to cycle through changes and make sure that we sort of keep track of where we are in that sort of agile process was particularly important for us. There were a few scenarios there before we actually said, hang on, let's pause and actually implement this whole DevOps thing properly, where like the testing and developing was happening literally twice, 3 times, 4 times a day, right? And we started losing track of where we were. So we wanted to have a bit more of a structured approach. Now, it's not very technical anymore. Microsoft has done a good job in Copilot to actually allow us to do that. But yeah, I think getting that in, it was probably the nugget to actually getting the project over the line, because we were sort of spinning wheels there for a while.
Yeah, yeah. But I think one of the key takeaways that I had from this project was the amount of communication going back and forth between Inner West and our data and AI team, and then keeping me in the loop from an account executive position. The communication was constant. If something wasn't working on either end, there was no delay in letting the other party know. And that was really integral in the success of this project, I believe. Steve, when we initially completed the project from our end and passed it over to Inner West to continue, we only had a few agents up and running, and that library has really grown over time. So now you've got something really cool, which is called the AI Hub, which I'll show some slides of now. But how has that grown and changed and developed over time?
Yeah, thanks, Dee. Essentially, as we started rolling out the agents, we realised we needed to push out something else to staff, not just only training, but some information people can consume. So we developed just a fairly simple SharePoint site where we grew over time. So this wasn't a big bang approach. We started small, even with the agents, where we started publishing basic information around this, what staff needed to help their AI adoption and their Copilot adoption. So I think we started off with about 4 agents. As Heinz suggests, but we're now growing out to about almost 20 agents. But what we've built is a knowledge repository where staff can go and actually look at the agent library, download the agents, or get access to the agents they want or they need to do it as part of their daily job. What we've also done is we've created some short bite-sized videos to help people along their journey. Now, this is even as simple as how to install an agent, how to use an agent, particularly, and they're grounded or particularly designed around that specific agent. So if we've got a policy writer, how do I use the policy writer in short, sharp bites? We've also got some other artifacts there around how to do prompts. Like we know there's prompt code, but here's the Inner West version of prompting. And we've given them a library that they can use there. So you'll see on the screen that you've got here, like down the bottom, we've got document analysis prompts or brainstorming prompts for teams. So we've got a library of I think it's about 30 different prompts that are contextualized to how council operates. But then over time, we did a lot more training, and then AI sustainability became one of those key principles or key themes coming out of the training, and say, well, all well and good. Like councils are very focused on environment and the sustainability of the environment. So in the media, there was a lot of things around all the compute or the cost of the environment around AI. So we had to have a lot of questions, and we did a bit of research and then also went and looked at what Microsoft's doing. And so we started educating people around what Microsoft's doing to protect the environment, but still use AI so you can enhance your job. That was one of the big things. And then over time, we're going to add a lot more things. Like we start getting a lot of questions. So yeah, thanks. You've got frequently asked questions on the screen now. Now these will always evolving. So we've got some basic questions around what's Copilot, but even in our daily engagements with our team, is we're constantly updating this. We're now going into the next phase as Microsoft throws out more knowledge, more information, we're going to then transfer this into little bite-sized chunks. And these will be little videos of how do I do this new function, whether it's like around co-work, for example. Eventually, like we'll say, okay, what is this thing called co-work? This is a short 2-minute grab, how do you use it? Or this is an agent, 2 short-minute grabs. So staff can do this in their own time. So it's supplemented some of the other work we've been doing. But again, it didn't take a lot of effort, a lot of work to do this. But this is sort of what will become expected from our staff to help their Copilot adoption.
And we'll go more into the adoption piece a little later. But Hein, I wanted to ask, initially from our end, how has the training approach been shaped so far to meet the users where they actually are at this current stage in their journey? Not just from a technical perspective, but how they work in the day-to-day.
So look, we started off where I think most people start off. We had the big bang sessions. We got the fancy MVPs in, and we made a bit of a show of it, right? So you want to have a little bit of that awe moment almost where people are like, oh, this is serious. Um, you, so you want a bit of a wow factor on those initial 2 days or however long that is. But I do think we realized there that it's a trap that the technical people typically fall into is we live this stuff every day, right? So for us going through this in 2 days might feel like it's sort of cumbersome for the end user or for the cadets, which we'll talk about in a second. And you have to realize it's a lot of information for people to take in, and it's a scary topic, right? So I think that was a big. We had to take a pause there for a second because yeah, as important as that is, all credit to InnoWest for sort of running with this model where it's constant lunch and learn. It's a very sort of safe space to come into for users, especially those more apprehensive users. And what I really like about it, Steve made this comment when we were sort of just running through this, where it's like, yeah, but the AI hub is so simple. But like that to me is the point, right? It's not, not everything has to be the most complex and involved thing. It is such a simple artifact which serves such an important role and has such a big impact. Whereas like I know where to go, I can read the questions, I can do it in my time. So it's not being thrust upon me. So I think from an end user perspective, that AI hub is really a stroke of genius, right? So it's really a great artifact to have. What's from a bit more from a technical side, what we've started doing with InnoWest is, as much as us consultants love spending time on site, there is some realities around us not being around the whole time. But we've sort of got into this relationship with InnoWest now where the cadets, which are those sort of citizen developers that are starting to become part of the AI team, they actually have access to our sort of level 3 or architect level resources where we just spend time when they've got a question, we like book up a meeting and we just hash it out, right? We go through it. There have been days where they've asked us questions which we didn't know, right? Because they're really pushing the boundaries, and it basically has that sort of relationship in the back where it's like when those cadets that have now stepped up into this sort of development role, I think as much as you have your end users have a safe space, is to have those guys be able to go and like, I have an emergency button that I can press, and I've got somebody that can give me advice or help me solve this technical problem. Because I think there's nothing worse being put into that position. It's a new technology. You've got all the eyes on you, and you don't have backup, right? That is a very daunting proposition for anyone. So that's been quite refreshing from an ASI perspective. It's a little bit different than what we would usually do, but it's been good, right? It's been good having knowing that you're the backup, and it keeps the team on their toes, right? Because you never know what kind of questions are going to come your way.
So we didn't originally go into this project having that formulated for the end of the project at handover. So how long have we been running with that sort of relationship with the team, with the cadet relationship?
Oh, how long?
Got you on the spot there. Sorry.
I'm gonna go with about 6 months, maybe a bit more now, Steve. Yeah, where it's just we're sort of just sitting in the back and waiting for the calls.
Yeah. Perfect. So, Steve, from the council side, can you go into a little bit more about the lunch and learns and what councils put in place to really help users understand the tech, feel comfortable using it rather than being intimidated by it?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. So I guess I might start introduce the concept of like cadets. So just for context, our approach has been made possible thanks to our people and culture team, who allowed us to, through some grant funding that they managed to source, we recruited 2 AI cadets. Now these are Claire and Julius. I'll name them because they've been amazing throughout this project, but they're recent graduates from university and looking to expand their career, get a bit of on the job training as well along the way. So it's a bit of they get some benefits out of it. But they've been the real champions of this AI initiative. They've been the ones that are working with staff day in, day out. They're engaging with them on a daily basis. They're sort of understanding, okay, well, what do you do that repeat that you do repetitively throughout the day that's probably low value work or need to do other things. So they've been there instrumental around the engagement. What we've also done is, so it's not just, hasn't been just a one speed process. We've been sort of taking it what we call a 2-step, 3-speed process, where we started training all of staff. So effectively, that the team developed a introductory AI ethics and Copilot chat training, and these are face-to-face training sessions. So Claire and Julius have trained those 450 staff, all the way from the executive, the leadership team, all the way down to frontline staff. And then in parallel, what we've been doing is we've been developing those typical governance artifacts that you need, the AI ethics principles, acceptable use guidelines and protocols. That initial training session stopped. We've finished that. We're now converting that to a self-paced learning platform for new starters. But that doesn't stop our adoption and the ongoing training. So we've now recently released fortnightly and lunch and learn sessions where we've got 3 agenda items. So here's 3 new functions or new tools. But it's an open door policy for staff to come in and say, well, I'm doing this. Can AI help me? So it's and it can be one-on-one. So lunch and learns are saying, here's something we've developed, or here's a new function. We're demoing that. We're doing the bite-sized videos after that. And then we've got a lot of staff actually attending these sessions. Like, it started off with about 20 people coming. I think the last session had about 50 staff join this lunch and learn. And then even the general manager and the director of corporate jumped in and thought, wow, this is fantastic. Look at how we're trying to empower our staff. The benefit of that is we can now realistically see that staff are comfortable. They actually see the benefit of AI and how it can be included in their daily workflow. So it's just been amazing, and really hats off to Claire and Julius. I mean, it's been a real success for them.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to attend one of those lunch and learn sessions, and I was blown away with the engagement from the Inner West team. So well done, Claire and Julius. I think Julius is on this call, shout out. So you mentioned mitigating a bit of fear from some of your users. So has the council received any pushback or hesitancy from the staff, and how's it been handled? What have you done?
Generally, and I know this is probably a buzzword, but generally it's been very well received. But we have had some pushback along the way. We've had a couple of staff, the typical thing of, oh, AI is going to replace my job, or things like around sustainability. How is this impacting the environment? Now, we're sort of not spun is probably the wrong word, but it's probably trying to work with our staff and say, well, no, AI is not here to replace you. To actually try to enhance your experience and make your daily work like a lot easier. So it's not about just knowing the tool, it's how you can embed that tool into their daily job so they can do other stuff. So we've actually worked with them closely to say, okay, well, how come you're scared it's going to be replacing your job? No, it's not that. What do you do on a daily basis that we can make life easier for you? So we've built a couple of agents for some of these staff. They've now come back and actually said, well, actually, I'm no longer worried about AI. It's not actually going to impact me. But if I'm not aware of what AI can do, I will be left behind. So now it's that self-perpetuating thing. They want to learn. They're now front and center. The sustainability was the big thing from a couple of staff. So we didn't originally have that in our learning or our engagement. So we took some actions and actually did go away. We did do that research, and we said, well, here's what Microsoft in particular is doing behind the scenes. They're investing in all these different areas. But on the flip side, we've done some engagement surveys as well, and the feedback from even training program has been overwhelmingly supportive. And now we're getting, like, on a daily basis, we get so many more people going up to Claire and Julius and saying, can you please help me? So yeah, the roadblocks or pushbacks, it's been minimal. But it's been that, I think that's a success of what Hein and Claire Julius have been doing over the last couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what has resonated most with staff so far? Formal training, hands-on examples, peer learning, or has it been something else? What would you say?
Um, to be fair, I think it's all of the above there. But the thing that has really resonated is the engagement that the team is giving staff. Typically, IT areas across councils, I'm sure has been, okay, we've got our job here. We're trying to keep the lights on, roll out new emerging technology. And that all takes time. But the big thing that's resonated with staff is, well, you come to us with a problem and we're actually solving that problem for you or helping you with that problem in a week, 2 weeks maximum. So we're adding that value very quickly to the business. We're not trying to achieve perfection. We're actually trying to add value very quick. So gone are the days where we're saying, here's months or months worth of work until you get your outcome. Staff from problem through to a solution, it's a very quick turnaround. Now, the benefit of that and how that's happened is because of all the trust, all the training and all the engagement that we're working with the team. Staff are confident that if they do come to us, we'll be listening. So that's what's resonated really well with the staff. We're actually listening, we're actually delivering, we're giving them an outcome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. A couple more questions for you, and I can see there's a few questions in our Q&A, so I'll get to those in a second. Steve, you've spoken a lot throughout the project, so since I think August, September last year, about keeping the human in the loop. Can you explain what that really means in practice for your council?
Yeah, as part of our AI ethics principles, they're probably the most foundational principle that we've got. Essentially means that people or staff, they remain accountable. The agent might be doing all the heavy lifting around the drafts, the suggestions, or the explanations of whatever output there is. But humans always review or decides and owns that outcome. The agent doesn't make the decisions, doesn't make the approvals or the actions without human judgment. So every time we talk to staff, we're reinforcing that, and that comes through in some of our agent designs and outputs. There's always a check in there to say, okay, are you sure this is all what I've developed? Do you want to refine more? But we're training, educating staff to look at the references, make sure that the outputs actually do make sense. And it's not just AI doing it for you. Yeah, AI is doing the heavy lifting, but you, as the agent, as the staff member, are responsible and accountable. So it's pretty simple, straightforward for us. But that's
amazing. I think you've answered my next question, so I'll skip one. From your perspective, how did that human in the loop mindset influence staff confidence and adoption across the council?
I suppose it's just giving staff that psychological safety, that staff felt comfortable experimenting. They got to know that they were still in control. But once people realised Copilot couldn't overrule them, the adoption was less scary. It started becoming more practical. So what we were trying to do is essentially just trying to build a culture of use AI safely and effectively, but they are the ones that are responsible. So, but apart from that, like people go, okay, and they understand how AI can just coexist with what they do. So they're the experts. AI is just getting them to their journey or destination a lot quicker. So, for example, like it takes you 3 or 4 days to write a policy, write a report. We're just saying, okay, use it to start. You finish it off. That 70% is good enough. Human is the one who's finishing that 30%. So, been a success.
Yeah, great. So the Copilot agent development project was finalised in late 2025. What has the rate of adoption been so far and the biggest successes day to day?
Sorry, I'm just reading through my notes.
That's okay.
Having the right data is important.
Yeah. I think having the right data is important. But without our AI cadets, like we've rolled out to over 400 staff. 450 staff have gone through the training. So just having 400 staff using Copilot on a day-to-day basis, I think it's been revolutionary. Having the team dedicated not only to the technology, but the rollout and the adoption, it's just helped them with their daily workflow. I think that's just been it's the fast adoption. I think it's just been the big success for us.
Yeah. And I think too, having them all willingly attend a lunch and learn session, you know, and have that number growing each time is really powerful. So for another council watching this webinar, there's lots of councils on the webinar. What's one thing you'd strongly encourage them to get right early?
Number one, or engage with Microsoft and partners. Do that just to build your initial knowledge and skills early, just with the core team at least. But not just adopt that one speed of process, typical like that waterfall approach. We went down consciously, like as Hein just said, get your data right. Put all your data security governance in right. Yeah, okay, great. But for us, it was build the agents, build the governance and guardrails in parallel. But also engaging with our executive, get them on the journey, get our staff on the journey. It's not just another IT initiative. It's actually getting them to co-build. So, okay, well, what do you need? You know your job is fairly well. We know a little about what you do. Tell us a bit more. The biggest thing was, let's start simple. Build those simple, repetitive agents, things that are not too sensitive. Don't over-engineer it. Like Hein earlier said, we tried to build that business analyst type agent where it did everything for you, did all your integrations. We would have still been building if we were trying to build that. So we just said, no, let's not overcomplicate it. Don't try and achieve perfection first iteration. We do need to iterate. So get the value out there very quickly. Turn things around quickly so people go, well, they are listening to us. But the most important thing that we've identified to achieve this is we needed to build capacity in the organisation to dedicate to this initiative. And that's why we brought on the AI cadets. The AI was one of those big paradigm shifts or the new emerging technology that we think was a disruptor. So how do we make that journey? So we brought on people, not necessarily the most skilled people that have been doing AI for years, but we built the capability with them and we're embedding that into the organisation. So that's been the biggest thing for us.
Yeah, I love that. Hein, I'm going to pass it over to you. Based on this project, what advice would you give organisations starting out to balance innovation with responsibility?
So I think as it's become quite apparent, agent first is a good approach. It feels like it's going to be more complicated. It feels like it's more risky, but I genuinely believe agent first is a safe approach, right? Because you ring fence, you've got control over what this thing can do. So I think that's massive. Another big thing which I sort of spoke about earlier is get used to doing DevOps quickly, right? It is not as crazy as it sounds. It's not as technical as people are led to believe, but it is a practice of just doing stuff the right way from day one. And I think, above the technology, above processes and everything, I think educating your users is probably the most important part of being used to deliver AI responsibly, because you want to like give them that safety of and that security of like where's the safe space to work, but you also want to start as much as you can try and block shadow IT, because I did see a question about shadow AI tools. Like, as much as you can try and block that, right? Is people can still go to their home computer and do what they need to do there. And that's a whole can of worms to try and unpack. But making users aware of what to do and what not to do, and giving them an avenue where doing the right thing is easier than doing the wrong thing. That solves like a lot of the problems already.
Yeah, thank you. Now, final question for both of you, so you can fight over who answers this first. If there's one mindset change that's helped make this project successful, what would it be?
Steve, you're the guest.
The thing that it's almost like stop thinking Copilot is just a tool people have to learn. It's probably a capability that you need to start embedding into your organization or even in your role day to day, but doing it responsibly. They're tools that are amplifying your expertise or the staff expertise rather than replacing it. Now, it's more about this, how can AI help me on my day-to-day job, right? We're being asked to do more with less. So it's trying to take that AI first mindset and saying, okay, well, how can this tool help me? But I need to know how to use it responsibly. How do I actually know what I can get out of it? But finally, it's probably just starting is the big key for us. I think it has been really revolutionary for us. But yeah, I think you just got to learn how to bring it into your daily work.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Hein, anything to add there?
Yeah, look, everything Steve said there is perfectly on point. The one thing that I would say this project was a bit of a turning point for us, and it's something that as a team we've embraced, both in our internal capability and as sort of a methodology to explain to our customers is this educational type role that you start playing. And that has twofold, right? The cadet program, we've already spoken about it. So I think that's very important for vendors. It's very counterintuitive for us to say, we'll stand back, we won't do the work. It's weird, but I think it's very important. And one thing that we've noticed, trying to apply that internally, which I think is applicable to organizations, one of the biggest risks that we identified is, yeah, you can do less with more, or do more with less, as Steve suggested. So, the people that adopt AI quickly, the seniors in the team, those people, they are like amplified in their capability to deliver. Now, the risk there is a junior developer, a cadet, a junior policy writer, anybody with junior in their title is at risk because typically your job was the legwork, right? So those are the people that are really at risk, and we needed to find a way to solve that because seniors are not going to be seniors forever. At some point, they might want to actually leave the workforce. So a massive, massive sort of change in mindset for us is, yes, the juniors get to vibe code. Yes, the juniors get to use AI. But as a senior, going back to that education mindset, I spend a lot more time with the junior members of my team as to saying, great, you've done this with AI. Here's what I would have checked. Here's what I want you to check next time. This is how you could potentially change that, right? So it's getting those years and years of experience and getting the juniors to actually be exposed to that kind of thinking earlier. Right now, I think from a technical perspective, so far it seems to be the recipe. I do think that there is scope for that kind of thinking in other areas of business. So I do believe anybody that works with information, that's the recipe, right? You are a senior because you know stuff, right? But we need to think about the next generation. Eventually you want to maybe slow down. So like you can't just let the younger workforce just disappear. So I think those will probably be the two big things over the last 6 or 9 months that's really popped up.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a few more minutes left, so I wanted to address Aaron's questions. Aaron, thank you for popping those in. He did ask if the webinar is going to be available to download. Yes, you will all receive a copy of the webinar. And how are you managing shadow AI, staff using other AI tools and data being shared out to public services or their own tools? What is your take there, Steve and Hein?
Okay, well, I might start. So we did have people like staff using like ChatGPT or other tools. That's where we started developing some of the policy documents or the acceptable use guidelines that we said, okay, only ICT approved applications. But it did also go through and we would go out and engage with staff to say, well, what are you using out there? What are you using it for? How can we help? So we've taken that proactive step and tried to just build agents for staff, or this is probably also one of the drivers for us for doing Copilot. And so we have a tool that was governed, that was controlled, and gave actually people what they needed. That was the fundamental thing. But then as part of the AI ethics training, we highlighted the risks of using those shadowed IT sort of type applications. We said, please use these for these reasons. Separately, we do have some other projects in the pipeline, or actually in flight now, around the data governance control, like data loss prevention, etc. They are actually in flight now. So we're using other tools to complement our Copilot experience.
Amazing. Anything to add there, Hein?
I was going to try and throw in the DLP and purview rules there, because ultimately that's what it comes down to, which sort of talks to the agent first approach as well. I think to take a full zero trust approach and really eliminate shadow AI, you need to have your M365 tenant really bedded down, which is quite a mature concept. Most people have the basics down, maybe a bit more than the basics, but getting to that point where, no matter where a document goes, it will always follow the same rules. That's a relatively mature concept. That's the only real answer to it, right? Unfortunately for now, but I think until then, and having those responsible practices and awareness will go a long way in fighting the fight for you.
Thank you so much. Another question has come through from Kelly asking if we can see an agent in action. Exciting. Can we do that?
Yeah. Live demos, right? What could go wrong?
Yeah, I'm happy to do a bit of a live demo. So I'll start sharing my screen. Bear with me.
No worries.
All right. So one of the agents that we've built, sorry, what's that? About a month ago, we got a request from one of our business units in our planning, our senior manager planning, saying, I need to do an expression of interest. I need to buy some products or capability, but I don't know exactly what I want. I know some of the things that I'm thinking about, my vision, but I don't know what solutions will help. So we said, well, how about you go through an EOI process? So if you're not familiar, an EOI, or expression of interest, is a procurement process, a two-step process. So we built an EOI agent to help those users actually craft the scope document to go be as an attachment to the procurement document. So in my agent store, we've got an EOI agent, and it's just a chat experience. So we've got a couple of starter prompts here. So I'm going to start. I need help writing an EOI. And it's a very conversational type experience. I should preface this is using one of the Anthropic Claude models. So it's really good at giving us the text outputs. I'm just going to write, I need EOI for a new booking system. Right, it comes back and it's very conversational. In this instance, we've got two modes. So I've got known requirements or mode 2, exploring options. I'm going to go mode 1 because I generally know what I want. So just to get us started, what is this booking system for? SaaS-based booking system for community facilities, park, and sports grounds. All right, so what's driving the need for this new system? Our current solution is end life and no longer meeting community expectations. So as you can see, it's very conversational. It's asking me a lot of questions along the way. Asking for some detail. So how many facilities? 100 facilities.
Stephen, just this is one that InnoWest built by themselves.
Yeah, very much so. So all the skills and knowledge that we learnt from ASI were allowed to enabled us to build this ourselves. So what we've got is casual hires. Not many more questions. And now it's asking for some integrations. I don't need to put a lot of detail in here. I can put sharp, short responses, or I can put a lot more detail in there. But given this is a demo, I'll keep it fairly light.
So Steve, before you had this agent and someone needed to write an EOI, how long would that take them to do?
Honestly, in the last couple of months that I've had staff do these, 2 weeks, a week to week, depending on how complex it is. Okay. And now we can turn these around in an hour or so.
So great. Such a time saver.
So I'm just saying, I don't have a budget in mind, but I want the system implemented by December 26th. Now it's just asking for some capabilities. So there's probably about 10 questions going on here. Online self-service and keyless entry to facility. Now the final questions are there any compliance or legislative? So again, human in the loop if you want. So if there are any specific privacy or any other examples, it's asking me to prompt. But I can say compliance and privacy as per council's normal practice. I would normally upload a bit more information here about what we do, but again, it's just a demo. But we'll put in stuff around like privacy management. We'll put specific legislation, record keeping practices in here. And then finally, before it gets into generating the EOI outputs, it's actually just asking me, again, human in the loop. It just wants to make sure it's understood the context. So it allows me to say, okay, make any changes here before it actually goes to proceed. So I'm just going to say now, give me a full draft.
Very polite, Steve.
You have to say please and thank you.
Yeah, it's still a habit that apparently you shouldn't do it, burns light bulbs and all that, but it's still something that it feels unnatural not to say please every now and then.
That's right. Keep it happy.
So what's happening here now is it's using the Sonnet models. So they're a bit slower than the GPT models in our testing. What's going now, it's actually looking at all our policy documents. It's looking at all our protocols that we've set up as knowledge, looking at procurement documentation. It's also looking out at the web for potential inclusions in requirements, etc. And then it will come back, and the output here is we'll output it just into the chat window. We have built other agents that populate templates automatically, but our experience here is we'd like to keep that in the chat window so users can keep refining. Is a thing. So this can take about 2 or 3 minutes. So I don't know how I'm tracking for time, but I can show you one that I prepared earlier if you would like.
Yeah, we've gone over, but we've still got quite a few people on. So
yeah, it's thrilling stuff. People haven't dropped off after the allotted time. It's a good demo.
And the tech gods are with us today, which is
handy.
So this is one that I prepared earlier, just to make life a bit easier, but it's the same sort of scenario. So here here's the expression of interest. Give me the title. It highlights to the users the stage 1 or the 2-stage procurement process. Gives me a bit of the back council and project background, our business problems and drivers. Now, this is all based on our EOI template structure. So these are the headings and all the different language that we would specify. So this is the Inner West language. It's the Inner West experience that we'd like to interact with agents. Gives us our desired outcomes, scope statements, what's out of scope, and then we get into our high-level requirements and what's essential, desirable across platform and a couple other information. So a fairly full-on output for a handful of questions. So now what our experience is, the user is then expected to review all this criteria, validate the outputs, and remember the human in the loop principles. And then they can then continue to work on this and address any other gaps, and then they can release that to market.
I mean, even just word for word, that's less typing, right?
Very much so.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. So just full disclaimer, I haven't actually seen that agent, and that was really, really impressive.
Thanks.
There you go.
That took the team about a week and a half to develop. So that includes scoping, requirements, building, and testing.
Wow. Very impressive. Thank you so much, Steve, for your time today. We've loved speaking with you, and I hope everyone on the call has enjoyed listening to the project outcomes and all the hurdles we jumped through to get to the end point. And thank you, Hein, for all of your work on this as well. We will be sending out the recordings and the prize winner details in the coming days, hopefully tomorrow. If any of the attendees have any questions or want some more information, please reach out to Steve, Hein, or I, and we'll be happy to help you. But that's it. That's the end. Thank you all so much, and we hope to see you again next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Thanks.
Oh, Aaron's got his hand up. Had his hand up. No? All right, apparently not.
Maybe it was a wave. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.